welcome those of you who have already joined us here today. I'm looking forward to getting started, and as much as I appreciate your promptness, sometimes getting into these things isn't always a piece of cake, so we'll just give it a couple of more minutes if you don't mind for those of you to join in and see what we have to offer today. So again, I appreciate you guys joining on time, and look forward to sharing what I hope is some useful information for all of you today. Well, welcome to the 5 things every MSP must do to grow their business. And in this particular webinar, we are focusing on the must do. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail if you don't, but if you really want to grow fast and you want to grow, we believe these are must do things. And so let's get started. First off, let me talk a little bit about CRO Leader. I think we're unique in the aspect as consultants and a firm that's here to help you grow your business is that we focus on you. We certainly have a lot of solutions that anyone can adapt to, but at the end of the day, a lot of those solutions are the one-to-many, and they don't take into consideration who you are and what you are. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't invest in some of those things like lead generation, outsourced marketing, and things like that. But at the end of the day, their level of success is going to be based on how you were able to manage them and how you were able to embrace them and how only you can know if those things actually fit what you're trying to do. Here at CRO Leader, we like to take a good look at you, and we like to help you go to the next level, one level at a time, until you're bringing in clients on a regular basis. A little bit about myself. One of my favorite subjects, I think my wife will tell you, I've owned a few businesses. I did start and sell 2 MSPs in my lifetime, a lot of startup experience. So I have been a business owner, so I've walked in your moccasins there. For sales professionals, I've been a sales professional. I was very successful selling high-end technology. I have also managed sales teams. I think probably one of the most valuable assets to my resume, though, here, and certainly working with you folks, is the many channel position roles that I had where I spent so much time with hundreds, if not thousands, of MSPs and getting to observe what the most successful were doing well and those struggling, what they weren't doing well, and ways to assist them both as a channel manager for a vendor and major distributors, and of course as an individual. So that's a little bit about my background and where I'm coming from in this. Again, we focus only on MSPs, MSSPs, VARs, and software as a service companies because this is the area that I've spent the most amount of time. And today, for those of you who are owners or leaders in your companies, we're going to talk to you about getting a little bit outside your comfort zone. And when I say outside your comfort zone, it's not that you don't have the energy or the wherewithal to do it, but it really isn't about where you live and breathe as somebody who has built an MSP. Chances are you've got the entrepreneurial spirit, you're a great leader, people will follow you, you got some good organization skills, and you really know technology. But sometimes that doesn't always parlay into marketing or sales leadership. And so we're going to help you out a little bit today with some of those things that would help you grow your business. And of course, this is a good opportunity for me to put in what is considered a shameless plug for my own book. And I wrote the MSP Owner's Manual. And what I want to tell you, particularly if you're an owner or a leader of an MSP, is this book is for you. I've got 50 chapters of what needs to be done. The answers are in most of the chapters, and when they're not, they talk about the best places to go get those answers. When I started writing this book, I didn't know how it was going to end up. I hadn't picked a title, and it ended up becoming the MSP Owner's Manual after hours and hours of me taking a look at the things you should do in various areas, but also these are things that I've observed and experienced. And I hope you enjoy some of the stories I tell about when it was successful or not so successful. And so that is the MSP Owner's Manual. All right, let's get to it. Here's what we're here for today. It's the 5 things every MSP must do for fast growth. And I do emphasize must do. I'm not saying you can't be successful without doing these things. I'm suggesting you can be more successful. I'm going to briefly go over each of them right now, right here. Okay, and for those of you who are attending this webinar, you'll receive a copy of this. You'll also receive a copy of my acronym chart, since I like to make up some of my own. Okay, but I am going to go into greater detail on each of these. You'll get a copy of these slides. I have a tendency to talk fast, so I apologize for you note takers. But let's just go at a high level. So you must know where you are before you want to get to where you go. And you must want to know where you got to go. Best ways to do this are with Traction's Vision Traction Organizer. It's a 2-page worksheet, very easy to do. We'll show you one here today, and it will help you determine where you are and where you want to go. But of most importance too, you must assess your environment. What does it look like? And what are you assessing up against? So in today's webinar, we will show you the things that you must be doing. And so you could sort of use those to determine how close or how far away from some of these things you are. The second must do, and by the way, I do think these have a bit of a chronological order about them, but probably the first one is the only one that really belongs first. The second thing that we are going to talk about today is called the ICPS and KPIs. The ICPS is the Ideal Client Profile Score. Also KPIs, Key Performance Indicators, which is the tracking of different actions that you take outside of counting the numbers in the forecast to make sure you're heading in the right direction. And more importantly, and again, we'll go into more detail, in improving your game and determining how to get better at some aspects and showing what maybe you're struggling at. And then there's the ideal team sales structure. Many of you work for small firms that don't have a pool of 20 or 30 people running your sales division. Am I correct? But I am going to talk about these as individual roles. But I want you to know what's important to note is until you have the ability to fill these positions and fill these positions with individuals with the right disc and the right job assignments and responsibilities, it's of the utmost importance to make sure that these responsibilities today are being accomplished, if not shared by other members of your team or put on one person's back. But the burden must be accomplished because I'm going to break these into roles. And this is where the fast growth comes from. When you divide these responsibilities to conquer, again, much more detail, we're going to talk about a sales methodology. If you don't have a sales methodology, you just wing it. Okay, that's it. You just wing it. And that can work, but we're talking about fast growth. We're talking about persistence and consistent growth. And then we're going to talk about sales leadership and how you, if it's outside of your comfort zone, may be able to improve your ability to lead a sales team, or at a minimum, know what's missing so you can adjust and maybe find that. Oh, and wait a minute. What probably isn't the last shameless plug. There really is only 5 things, but 6 is buy the MSP Owner's Manual. All right, let's get rolling. The Vision Traction Organizer. This is a 2-page document, and I'm going to talk about the first page right here. This is where, for those of you who are not familiar with Traction, this is a tool or an exercise that you would do for your entire company. And this is the one that you should be using when you're talking about your sales. However, for the purposes of this division, I have a tendency to take your existing Vision Traction Organizer, if you have one, and then keep what's on this page for the foundation for what we're going to do to grow your business. But more importantly, I want to take a look at your 10-year target and your 3-year picture based on where you want to be when it comes to a growth standpoint. And your 10-year goal should be awesome. It should be wild. It should be life-changing. It should be very large, very audacious, fun to think about. Throw a helicopter in if you feel like you need to. Ultimately, it should be achievable, but quite frankly, one doesn't know what's going to happen. So have an aggressive 10-year target, but if you keep a dose of realism in there, you'll also have the ability to figure out how to get there. And that's where the 3-year picture comes in. So if you're taking a look at your 10-year target, it's really going to happen. What has to be accomplished in the next 3 years? And this is the first page of the Vision Traction Organizer. And this should be a fun exercise. I know myself, I've sat down with many a business owner or CEO of an MSP, and we've really enjoyed doing this. By the way, this is a snapshot of my own, and it's not complete. Some more internal, personal information that we don't always want to share with the world. Your Vision Traction Organizer isn't something you put up on your website, but it is something you should be sharing with every single member of your company. Now, here's where the rubber hits the road. This is the second page of the Vision Traction Organizer as part of our first must do. And this is where we come in and say, okay, we're taking a look at that 3-year plan. So what do we got to accomplish in this first year? What are the goals for the first year for us to get to the point where, for example, that we're bringing in one new MSP client a month or a week or a quarter, depending upon where you are today. Okay, we take a look at that. Rocks, as defined by traction, are items that must be completed that quarter in order to stay on target for what we're trying to achieve in our one-year plan. So what happens, what has to be done this quarter? I'm going to cheat a little bit here and say that one of the first items, or one of the items of importance that needs to be on every one of these, and maybe I should write it in here anyways, is the number of first meetings ever you're getting. First meetings ever, we'll talk about in a minute, but that's where your company is talking to a prospect that it has never talked to before. And that's one of those pivot points or tipping points of activities that are going to fulfill any plan. The number of them you need is going to be based on the size of your team and the type of plan you have. Also on the right-hand side, a little bit of negativity. Yes, it is the issues. What's stopping you from doing it? Don't have a sales guy. Don't have enough money. Don't know what FME stands for. Whatever it is, you list your issues and don't hesitate. We're not going to drill on all of them, but this is where, even here at CRO Leader, we do not engage a client today without doing this page together, because as promised, we want to take you to the next level. You don't need us to take to the next level, but you do need to know what is your next level. What are your next levels? Some can be achieved simultaneously, again, depending upon the size of your team. This is such a great exercise and a must-do. Now, the second part of that is assessing where you come from and what your environment is like. We are really big believers here of CRO Leader of the DISC behavioral methodologies. This, again, is not about skill. It's not about experience. This is about behavior. And what we find when we have the right behavior, natural behavior in a role, what we find as individuals with the right DISC in the right roles excel much farther, are much happier, are much more natural at what they're doing. And so we'll talk about the right DISCs for the right roles. But it's when you assess your team, I highly recommend that you DISC your whole team. You don't have to be a DISC expert to read the reports that come over that talk to you about those individuals. It's sometimes kind of fun to do. There is a fee associated with that. There are some free online DISCs that don't necessarily give you the reporting that we can offer you, but I highly recommend as you assess your environment, DISCing your team, and you'd be surprised how many people we find within your company to fill roles we think are going to help grow sales that you potentially weren't thinking of. Other times it just validates. So DISC is important. Secondarily, assess your environment. What kind of processes and marketing do you have in place today? Okay, take a look at that. Now, again, we'll go into greater details on these. You might not be tracking and analyzing your KPIs, but you should start, and you can go back and you can take a look at the KPI chart, which you'll see in a minute, and talk about and think and just sort of guess at where you think you've been historically. Other pieces of the information simply need to be looked up within your own custom, your PCAs, PSAs, or your CRMs. Do you have a responsibility chart? Do you have a list of responsibilities that people need to do? These are the things that, again, will help you assess where you are today. So before you go out and hire a lead generation company or a marketing firm or an appointment setting firm, okay, if you follow this first, and again, this is the first part. I said earlier that this may be the only section that is done in order. You'll better leverage what you get from those outside sources. I love these outside sources, and I will tell you that I've worked with many of them, and I will tell you most of the time when they fail is because the person utilizing the services either didn't guide them properly to make sure they're getting what's useful for them, or weren't able to leverage what those companies were delivering to them. And it's unfortunate because both companies want to succeed and investments are made. And in any case, this is an integral part of what you must do. Take a look at your process, take a look at your market. You don't have to be an expert at it. Just sit down and have that discussion with your team or take a look at that on paper. Okay, so that's past the VTO and the assessing. Here is what I believe is the second must do. It's two parts, and this is about scoring. again, another traction methodology. But here, this key performance indicator is where we count the latest things that, the things that we believe that you need to do. I mentioned the latest because I was thinking of my buddy Mike here, who's on the call, who probably has a KPI chart that I had given him maybe 3 or 4 years ago when we were working together. And he may or may not see some things on here that are not. This is always evolving. But what's important to note is that it's not just evolving, it's individual to your company and your individuals. I track these activities. Notice there's no revenue numbers on here. I track these things. Yeah, you track revenue, you track it somewhere else, you track it in your PSA, but this is the activity that leads to sales. And when you track this activity, you'll start to figure out your own algorithm, if you will, as to what it takes for you to fill in the bottom. What does it say on the bottom? It's number of pending proposals and number of proposals presented. I am of the belief that a proposal emailed or mailed in the mail is of far less value and vulnerable versus those that are presented. In some cases, I won't even send one because of the work that I put into it and my desire to know that it has to be presented. By the way, I don't send any of my own proposals, and you'll find out when working together that you're going to have to sit down and let me walk you through it. It is the difference between closing 10% of your deals or maybe 80% of them. So proposals, number of proposals is at the bottom. There's no accident that at the very top is FMEs, first meetings ever. FMEs are the silver bullet. They're the wooden stake. They are the pivot point of everything you will do to grow your business. Not one of your clients did not start with a first meeting ever where you talked about what they need and what you do and how that might align. Everybody has to have a first meeting. You can call it first date. I think it's more like first kiss, because sometimes we can get people to talk, but this is where it starts. And this is where you're going to figure out where you must be tracking these, because if you're not getting enough of these, then you're never going to get to the point where you're bringing in a new client on a regular basis. All of the things in between that you see on this KPI are all the activities necessary to develop first meetings ever, which will lead to proposals. And what I put on this chart, and again, you'll get a copy, is a very basic starting point. If you're not meeting with a new prospect every week, you should be targeting that. Most sales professionals that are closers are going to need a couple a week, okay? And why not 5? Met recently with a prospect who said he'd like to generate 10 a week. Yeah, wouldn't we all? At the end of the day, it's still where the rubber hits the road. So how many emails do we have to send? How many LinkedIn invites? How big of does our database need to be with the right marketing qualified contacts or the right marketing qualified leads? And so let's talk about that a little bit. The ideal client profile. Okay, I think the ConnectWise team, somebody's calling it TCP. Anyways, it's about the ideal client, and in this case, what we've developed here on a very new technology called Excel, for those who haven't heard of it, and what we have here is the ideal client profile score. We score every contact we put in a database to determine if it's worthy of our attention first and foremost. We don't market to anybody that we don't have enough information on, okay, or is not at least 50% higher of whatever our ideal client score comes out at. This particular chart would generate a 40 at max. We don't market to something unless it's 21 or higher, and we consider those ideal clients. For those below 20, we either investigate them to determine if we should be paying attention to them, or we fill in the information or create the activities like doing LinkedIn connections to have their score increased so that we know they're worthy of our time. Now, what's most important probably to a sales professional or an SDR is when they look at your database list, they can start with the highest scoring ideal client profiles every morning. They can go in there every day when they start their job and go after the ones who are of the most value to you based on what your ideal client is. Not only is it save on a tremendous amount of effort marketing to folks who you shouldn't be marketing to, the success rate is higher. And the success that comes from that is it's a domino effect. They can get aggressive. It's easier to get a meeting with somebody who is going to be a good fit for you than somebody who doesn't even need an MSP but happen to be opening your emails. So you're spending time trying to get them on the phone. Okay, so the second is this ideal client scorecard. And I can tell you, even within my own team, the percentages of success, regardless of what CRM you use, whatever marketing tools you use, are dramatically affected by doing this. So this is number two. These two are number two, and I highly encourage that you get to them. So third is our best practices sales team. Now, I don't have marketing on here, okay, because we're talking about the sales team and the must-dos from sales. I'm going to assume to a degree that you have some kind of marketing today, whether it's outsourced or or being done internally. And I'm sure there's some things you can do better there. But ultimately, what we're talking about to grow your business is about bringing in new clients. That happens at the street level. So we're going to go into greater detail in this, but I wanted to define, like I said earlier, these three distinct roles. And again, if you don't have a team that can separate these and maybe have the perfect disc for each role, and I'll touch on that in a sec, at least you can make sure that these activities are taking place, or you understand the obstacles that someone faces in sharing these roles, starting with leadership. Okay, the best sales professionals and still need to bounce stuff off their boss. Okay, and we'll talk about a methodology in a little bit. And regardless of the fact that you may not be the greatest sales leader because you're the CEO of the company or you own an MSP, you need to embrace your awareness and your knowledge, because you are a great leader. You do have the entrepreneurial spirit, but you've got to understand the methodologies. You've got to understand the individual's salesperson's strengths and weaknesses so that you can help guide them and make sure that they're being persistent, they're being consistent, need encouragement, good or bad at certain points in time. So leadership is important. And there are things you can do for certain parts of that to supplement what you might lack. Okay, SDRs, in a perfect world, SDR's only job is to set up FMEs. That's all they do. That is all they do in a perfect world. And I'll tell you why. We found after thousands of engagements with hundreds, if not thousands of MSPs, we find that the people who are really good at setting up the meetings aren't always really good at closing them. That's just, okay. And there's, by the way, we know why too. I'll tell you, it's not a secret. We've also found that sales professionals, the closers, the guys that are really good with aligning up your solutions with what a prospect needs, aren't necessarily good at setting up appointments. And the fact of the matter is, in both of those cases, is because there's a perfect disc for it. I will take an SDR with the right disc or a sales professional with the right disc over any experienced sales professional or SDR with experience that has the wrong disc. I put the disc higher than that. So for SDRs, we're looking for high Ds and high Cs. They got to get those dials in. They got to make sure they're following up on those emails, or they can't sleep at night. They've got to have that high D so that when people tell them to kiss off, they're like, all right. They don't like it. You don't have to like it, but they'll get back on that horse and they're just going to go after them again. Same holds true with your sales professionals, which is why they need a high D. We meet objections. People tell us all the time, no, not interested, too busy, send me some information. Those are all obstacles and that you need a D to overcome. Again, we don't like it, but we need them overcome. But your sales professional needs a high. They need to be a people person. They need to get engaged. They need to learn. They need to become a resource. And it comes through a lot of conversation and a lot of listening. And so the best sales professionals are high Ds and high Is. The best SDRs have a higher D and a higher C. Account managers really don't, everyone needs some decent D, we got to do it, but the best account managers have a high S, which stands for, again, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but talks a little bit more about steadiness and some compliance. But what an account manager's role is to make sure that your clients are compliant to your agreements and the things that they're supposed to be doing to assure that your SLAs are being delivered. Simultaneously, they're in there to take a look at what products that you have to offer that those clients are not using today. And from a marketing standpoint, it's on account managers to be constantly asking for and providing opportunities for your existing clients to give you good reviews in a variety of places, from your website, quotes, from your LinkedIn, Yelp, whatever it is. The account managers should be not only asking for those things when you're having great successes and things are going well, they should be providing links to the individuals and maybe even help them a little bit with the verbiage if necessary, because those can be the decision makers from a marketing standpoint when somebody's looking at your company. So those are the roles. All of those things need to be happening. We like to divide them by roles because we find, again, greatest success. By the way, I think the most perfect ratio is 2 SDRs on payroll for every sales professional, because great sales professionals, you can't schedule too many FMEs for them. Okay, so you bury them in FMEs and you say, "Where's my deal?" Again, I talked a little bit about this, but let me go a little bit deeper here into it. Again, I said earlier, it's kind of a bold statement. I'll take the right disc over experience. Part of the reason for that too can be budgetary. And everyone needs time to develop a business, not a long time. If you got a sales professional that hasn't closed a deal in a year, okay, and that's their responsibility, I'm going to tell you there's something wrong with your sales professional, there's something wrong with your environment, or probably both. But at the end of the day, the right disc over experience. DISC stands for dominance, influence, compliance, and steadiness. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I'm not going to go into great detail today, but I do want to say that I'll remind you that I did say that your SDRs need to be DCs, your sales professionals need to be DIs, and your account managers need to be SCs. We're a little D. They got to kick some doors down with inside the company. And by the way, intelligence is of the utmost in sales, as it is in your technical team. We really aren't a place for the less fortunate in brain power. This is not an industry where they can find some success. And no insult intended, you know. In fact, I sometimes envy that job that doesn't require any thinking, except I have the wrong disc for it and I would be exhausted and I would blow up. I think I might physically combust if I had it. But at the end of the day, intelligence is of the utmost importance. And industry experience. I want to talk about industry experience here when, you know, talking about the sales team and the foundation of it, because you can provide it. Telling ain't selling. At the end of the day, your closer is not going to be out there telling them what a great company you are, how many years you've been in business, how smart your technical people are. Your closer is going to be out there going, look, I recognize you have this need, and this is the cause and effect on you as a healthcare firm. They're going to out there and talk about how that you can help them close more deals. Prospects make buying decisions based on 4 criteria. And again, you'll get a replay on this webinar too, so I apologize for going fast, but they're looking for return on investment, competitive advantage, efficiencies / automation, and risk aversion / security today. That's what they make decisions on. So you going out there and telling them how you're really good at security is not nearly as effective, okay, as you going out there and having your sales professional finding the vulnerabilities within that company and the cause and effect in that industry and emphasizing how you know that they're vulnerable. If it's a law firm, of the data being exposed, or the inability for the lawyers to be able to peruse the information in a timely fashion. The ability, if it's healthcare, the ability to see more patients per hour because of the efficiencies developed. And every company is looking for a competitive advantage. So how is your technology going to say, look, you want to kick these guys' butt over here across the street? Well, you'll be able to discuss this better with your clients. Again, you can get your patients in and out faster because we're going to automate this, that, or the other thing. This is how you should be talking to your clients about the value you bring to their business and what business they're in. Okay, the technology is a necessary evil, and you're the guy that's going to help them get back to doing what they do in a better way, not just the guy that they can trust you to keep their technology up. You want to keep doing that, then you're going to sound like every MSP out there. By the way, not to be fooled, you do have to keep them up and running. You got to be good at it. But at the end of the day, when you talk about growth and new client acquisition, you should be talking about that type of content. And that's really what I'm talking about here. Having a sales process and have marketing that includes teach information. If you were to look at any emails or any marketing or some of the pages on your website that you're using to attract prospects or make you guys look good, what would I learn from that? If I were, again, using the legal or the doctor or a manufacturer, what I learned by looking at you, I'm a manufacturer, how you'll help me assure that my logistics is going well or that my line won't shut down because I have some kind of outage. That's what I want to know. I want to know if you can help me push more cars off the assembly line, okay? Not keep me up and running. And so that's called teach content. And you should be talking in that manner. And even if a prospect doesn't learn from what you teach them, at a minimum, if they already know it, they'll say, you get it. And that will move you ahead of the competition. And those are the guys that are growing because they're the ones that are being perceived as a value without having to tell somebody we're valuable to you. They're already being perceived as bringing value to that particular prospect. All right. And again, so those are the four precepts to making great sales professionals, making sure you have a methodology. So let's go into methodology. You must have a methodology, and it must be company-wide. Question-based selling is by far, I didn't invent it. In fact, the first time I read it, I realized I had already embraced 90% of it. I used to ask a lot of questions, mostly because I was curious, but probably driven because I care. I care about my prospects. I never wanted to sell anything to anybody they didn't want to buy. So I was the one trying to determine if they needed what I have to offer. Now you might know that before you go in. And so if you know it before you go in and you start telling them that, I'm going to kick your butt because I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ask a lot of questions, which is going to create a lot of empathy. And then I'm going to talk about how I can bring value to their lives and to their businesses. And that's what question-based selling is about. I've always said if you follow the question-based methodology religiously enough or strictly enough, might be a better term, you'll never have to ask for a PO. You just keep asking questions till they say, yeah, right. Okay, when can you do this? This is exactly what I need. These are the kind of responses you want to hear. When you're a real challenger salesperson and you're bringing value and you're bringing teach content, when your prospect says, I never thought of it that way before, or holy cow, why am I just learning this now? That's the type of reaction that's going to get you closing deals on a regular basis and separate you from other MSPs. And again, the methodology should be company-wide. If your technical team understood that you've got people trying to grow the business out there by asking questions, they might provide you with some great questions that would show two things. One, they're the right questions, so they'll show you what that you know what you're talking about. By the way, questions is the best way to brag without sounding like you're bragging. Okay, you'd be surprised how many great marketing questions I have gotten from technical people and your vendors when you look at the content that they would wish to have you parlay into clients. Again, telling isn't selling. You can convert all of that information into questions, and you'll learn how to do that in question-based selling. So make question-based selling a must-read for the majority of your team, if not all. And for the challenger sale, I highly recommend it for sales leaders and sales professionals. Okay, again, rubber hits the road. It's the fifth thing. Interestingly enough, I put it at the bottom of the list because you already exist in your company. You're not going to fire yourself, and you do not have, it doesn't make sense to go out and start with a sales manager. It's not cost effective, okay? And at the end of the day, world-class sales leadership costs a lot of money. So what do you do in the meantime? You recognize what the leader has to bring and you supplement, okay? These percentages were based on a survey, and I'll share those numbers in a second. The number one value that a sales leader, sales manager brings is the ability to innovate. offer suggestions, course changes during the sales cycle to keep you in it, to keep you in the sales cycle when you're being pushed out. The innovation that takes the incumbent and makes them vulnerable. Okay, and that you're aware of that. Your sales professional comes in and says, "Look, man, I'm getting pushback from this. What should I do?" And the best of sales professionals, I know you're counting on them on doing that, but there's a reason why the third base coach is throwing in signals, or Tom Brady has an offensive coordinator. These guys need coaching. They need tips. Sometimes they just need somebody to bounce something off of. Innovation is the single most important attribute that you can bring into your company from a sales leadership standpoint. The second is personal coaching, taking a look at the individual, whether it's an SDR, an account manager, or a sales professional, recognizing their disc and helping them with their own strengths and weaknesses to accomplish what they must do to be successful in their job. And by the way, one of the best tools you can use as a coach is taking a look at the KPI and trying to figure out why one SDR is doing more of one or is getting better results when it comes to the FME than another SDR doing other things. That's where you can coach that gap and adjust your advice to that individual as an individual. And third on the list, okay, is the ability to sell your own product. Since most of you owners and built your own companies, you're already gifted at this, but I would tell you that a sales professional who's tasked with that assignment doesn't have the trust that you have by simply being the owner. Okay. In fact, I kind of make a joke in the book that says, and if you want to prove it, just give them your company and they'll do a much better job. Doesn't make sense. Not a good idea. Not a good piece of advice. But at the end of the day, what you were able to say, the reason why you were able to close deals will matter to your closers. Okay. Granted, they're not the owner, but why did we get the accounts that we got? Loss reviews are very important. And again, there were 12,000 sales professionals that were interviewed for this and 2,500 sales managers. And this is what they found. And this is, by the way, something that we bring here at CRO Leader. We can help you with that, can help you with sources to get it, or outright supplement and lead parts or all of your team until you get to where you need to be, and leaving behind some of these experiences for you to leverage. But this is what they interviewed and they found. And here's the cool thing about this. And this came out of the Challenger sale. After they did these surveys, one of the things that they found is that not only were the best closers excelling in a bad economy, that they were typically doing the best. They're actually, your closers do better in a poor economy than in a good economy. And the reason for this is that they've become an asset to their prospects and to their existing clients by asking the right questions and helping those companies get to be where they need to be by providing the right amount of technology and suggestions. And that is the difference. And so imagine, if you will, if you were not only growing your business, that you didn't have to care what kind of economy was going on out there. I know there's some devastating things that can happen to an economy that have a ripple effect. But if you doubt me, I highly recommend you read the Challenger set. So from that, I suggest to you that great sales professionals are made. Yeah, they're born because they got to have the right disc and right behavioral. But I'm suggesting to you that even though you may not be the greatest sales leader to come along, you can develop your own great sales professionals by giving them the right foundation and the right environments to succeed. So with that, and where can you get all of that? Again, I want to remind you that these are what I consider 4 must-reads. Traction is just such a great way to run your business with the entrepreneurial operating system. They talk a lot about scoring in there. That's where the VTO comes from. My own book, which is again broken into 50 chapters, so you can take a look at the sector and the issue whenever you need to. It is meant to be a manual. It is meant to be on the corner and say, why isn't this working? What do I need to do about that? What's missing? The bottom 2 are really about sales methodology. It starts with question-based selling. Please encourage or ask everyone in your company to read it when you embrace that technology, certainly any sales professionals. And if you're a leader or you're a closer, I highly recommend the Challenger sale, which is one of the reasons why I'm giving away to one lucky winner today my book, question-based selling, and the challenger sale. With those 3 books under your belt, even without any assistance from CRO Leader or any coaching from me or any other of my consultants that help support me here, I know that I can help you change your business just by reading those books and adopting some of those methodologies. The good news, I guess, for folks like myself is you having the time to study and embrace all these may affect your ability to get there in time to market in a timely manner, or sometimes you just don't want to do it. So we're out here to help you out if you don't. With that, I will go to any questions first. By the way, don't go anywhere because we are going to do the drawing. And for those of you on the call, the book is available on Amazon. After the call, we'll send you a link to it, and we're going to keep it discounted until Friday because for some reason Amazon won't let us use discount coupons. So you can tell your friends even though they weren't on the call, but don't tell your competition. Do we have any questions? Abby? Are there any questions in the question sector? Share my screen?
Yep.
My apologies. You guys heard it spin though. I don't want to deprive Daniel. I'll show you the. Can you see it? Can you now see it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. My apologies because it's way more exciting to watch that thing spin around. But Gabriel, we're going to send you those books. Abby, do you have, want to make sure we have your contact information, and happy reading. And if you have any questions about them, again, I want to thank you all for joining today. I don't see any questions in the question section. So I appreciate you being here today. You'll get our acronym chart, a copy of this deck, a link to the MSP owner's manual if you so desire. And Gabriel, don't buy it because yours is coming real soon. Thank you, everyone.